From HYPEBEAST Radio, I'm Jeff Staple, and this is The Business of Hype, a show about creative entrepreneurs, brand builders, innovators, and the realities behind the dreams they've built. Shepard Fairey has been someone I've been studying since high school, and I didn't even know it was happening. Maybe it was because I grew up in the Northeast, but I was immediately noticing in my travels between New Jersey and New York City this André the Giant sticker that was everywhere. It was all over the place. And I remember some of the quote-unquote cooler kids in school even had the sticker on their book covers. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Shepard. I didn't know much about André the Giant other than his wrestling career. And I sure as hell didn't know that he had a posse. I did instinctively know that this wasn't real, though. I knew it was a creation of someone's. It was a campaign, like a guerrilla marketing tactic. But marketing what? I had no idea. But I did understand there was something very subversive about it. Kind of like when you're looking at like Morse code. You know it means something to someone, but you just can't decipher what it means. Did understand one thing, though. I understood the effort. I understood that it cost someone time, money, and energy to make and place these stickers all over the damn city. And that whole thing intrigued the hell out of me. Damn, now that I think about it, that sticker might have been an important reason why I operate in street culture today. Of course, the person who made that sticker is our guest today. And besides just making that sticker, he's gone on to make other incredible things. Artwork, brands, exhibitions, and positive causes. I'd hear him DJing at a cool party, or I'd see him repping the highly successful brand Obey. I'd see him creating the artwork that would assist Barack Obama in becoming elected into the White House. And I'd see him also take the heat for it and risk going to jail, which actually he ended up doing 18 different times. And so as he wraps up his biggest exhibition to date and enters into this whole new world of augmented reality and art, I finally managed to get some time with the man millions would come to obey.
I'm Shepard Fairey. I'm an artist, activist. People might know me for my Obey brand, my street art, or the Obama Hope poster, or the We the People posters I did for the Women's March in 2017.
How do you categorize yourself? Like, are you an artist first or an activist first?
I'm definitely an artist and designer first, but I look at the model of a lot of the music I love, the Clash, Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, Bob Marley, newer people like MIA, who use their art to say something as well as to entertain and make something enjoyable. So there are some visual artists that work in that same way. Barbara Kruger, Banksy, and Robbie Canal, but I'd like to see more. I just want to fuse picture making with saying something I believe in.
Yeah, and was that from the very beginning? Like you went to RISD, right?
Yeah, I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and that's where a lot of the ideas that had been brewing from high school, because I got into skateboarding and punk rock, which rebellious, creative, do-it-yourself cultures with political points of view, outspoken on things. But then going to art school was when I first realized it could coalesce. I saw, making homemade T-shirts that might say something, or a sticker that said "In the arms race, not the human race," as distinct from what I would do as an artist, because I'm from South Carolina, where it's very traditional art.
Yeah.
But then going to RISD, I was surrounded by so many people who were from different parts of the world with different perspectives, and then also, getting a better education about contemporary art, and going to a place like New York City and seeing all the graffiti and being really inspired by just the this anonymous expression that didn't have all the constraints that formal art did.
Yeah. I mean, all those ingredients sound like they're part of like the melting pot of Shepard Fairey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the graffiti part, when you saw graffiti for the first time, were you like, I want to be like as all-encompassing, all-city, everywhere like these guys? Was that like one of the early goals?
Well, yeah. I mean, seeing pieces from, recognizing a tag and seeing it one place, like, oh, that's cool. And then you see it another place. And then all of a sudden it becomes like a scavenger hunt. It's so exciting to see it. And to me, the idea that the world was very large and intimidating, I felt anonymous. I knew that if I could make things that I could put different places, that it was a way for me not to feel like I just dissolved into the background of the world. And I think a lot of things that are just existential questions drive people, but for me, a love of the freedom of graffiti, the mischief of it, and then just feeling like I could make my mark on the world. But because I didn't grow up in New York, I didn't grow up in a place where traditional hand style graffiti, wild style graffiti was was something I was exposed to. Right. I was making stencils and stickers and homemade T-shirts because of punk rock and skateboarding. So I decided I'm going to apply that same approach, that same philosophy to the the art tools that I already feel like I'm developing a command of.
A lot of people ask me, how do they find what their passion is? They ask, how do I get into something? And more often than not, it seems like the answer is you're probably already into it. Does drawing engage your mind? Does playing a musical instrument make you stay up all night, all the time? Are you obsessed with landing that skate trick? People always ask about how people get into something, and while it's vague, developing the interest and exploring it further is what happens if you let it. People want to know how Shepard got his start, and it seems like all his genuine interests naturally coalesced. He fused design, skating, music, and graffiti into what interested him further, bridging all of those concepts together into his own unique personal expression. The moral of this story? Keep exploring your genuine interests.
Let's go back a little bit before you did the André the Giant sticker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there someone out there that was like all over the world stickering?
I wasn't aware of anyone all over the world stickering, but I was aware of stickers that were pervasive in Providence at the time when I was there. There's some other kids from RISD that made this sort of Dada nonsensical sticker that said the hip weed was tobacco, with like a woman from the 50s holding a cigarette, but it looked like a joint. It was like a hand rolled cigarette. So they thought, that's so funny,
so rebellious.
Yeah, and but then what? And then there was the. Do you know what the Church of the Subgenius is? The Bob Dobbs, the 50s guy with the pipe. I had seen that a few different places, stenciled and stickered, and that was embraced by the guys from Devo and all sorts of sort of college students. But it's a 50s guy with a pipe that looks harmless yet malevolent at the same time, and all these quirky things that to me they just piqued my interest, and I thought, I'd like to do something like that. But really, when I started the André sticker thing, it wasn't me thinking, oh, someone else has created a template that I want to follow. I more or less stumbled into that. I mean, skateboarding had, of course, when you went to skate spots and you saw some ground curbs and, like an independent truck sticker on a sign, you're like, oh, okay, here's the primitive markings of a subculture. Yes, I'm down, totally. Like this is so exciting. And,
it's almost like the Google pin drop. Like,
right.
Yes, a cool spot.
Yeah, prior to Google Pins, exactly. And so, I was tuned in to sort of looking for those little subtle things in the landscape like that. But I made the André sticker in an effort to teach a friend how to make a stencil, and then it sort of turned into this inside joke that just then ran amok.
Really?
Yeah. I was a friend of mine, Eric Pupecki, who became a pro skateboarder later on. He was staying at my house. I didn't have a TV. I was subsidizing my meager skate shop income by making homemade T-shirts of the Clash and Jimi Hendrix and all things like the Misfits, and he was like, "I'm bored, man. I want to learn how to make a stencil." So I looked through the newspaper, and there was an ad for wrestling with André, and I said, "Why don't you make a stencil of this?" And he tried to cut it with an X-Acto knife, got frustrated, but as he's trying, we're like, "Yeah, what are we going to do with this?" We're like, "Oh, we're going to say you're not down with André's posse, like." And then if the person said, "No, what is it?" Like, "Sorry, top secret, we can't tell you." But
Wow.
sort of like, when the way skateboarders are when a band sells more than 5 cassettes, they're a sellout. So you got to like find the new band that sold under 5 cassettes at that point.
Yeah.
And so it was just a goof. But then what I noticed was that when I gave a few of the skate friends some stickers, and they ended up on boards, and I put some at skate spots, and I had a fake ID, so I was going to some of the music venues and bars and stuff around Providence, putting them up. The next thing you know, the local sort of hip free paper, the independent paper, runs a picture of the sticker and says, anyone who knows what the André the Giant sticker campaign is about wins tickets to the living room show of your choice. The living room was where you'd see Bad Brains, the Ramones, Suicidal Tendencies. I wanted those tickets.
But wait, did they contact you about that?
No, they just ran this as a picture of the sticker. So I was like, wow, that's like 15,000. I know the term media impressions now. I didn't then, but like they reprinted it 15,000 times.
Right.
And so then I thought, okay, putting something in public space that's not easily explained, it's really disruptive, actually.
Yeah.
And because it's this thing wasn't exactly a tag, and it wasn't an ad. What is it?
Yeah.
And so I really accidentally stumbled on a fascination with this project that, initially I was trying to only appeal to my core group of skaters and punk rockers. But then when I realized that it was making people curious further than that, I decided I want to push it a lot further. And I was also fascinated by the psychology of all the different interpretations, sort of like a Rorschach test, the ink blot test, where everyone brings their own baggage to how they interpret it.
Very interesting learning here from Shepard. You build it for the audience that interests you and see what happens. There's a long road to the middle, and often it's littered with people who try to please everyone. But I think if you look through design history, advertising history, and the annals of music, you'll find that the greatest disruptors and innovators are the ones who didn't try to please everyone. They lived among their audience, and they didn't have to learn the language to communicate because they already spoke it fluently. The world came to Shepard Fairey. He didn't go to them.
I have a side anecdote where I went to Japan with my mother, who was not a fan of graffiti or street culture, but we're waiting in line at Narita Airport through immigration. And the tension bar turnstile things that they have? So there's like André the Giant stickers on those.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's me. Yeah. I started going to Japan in 99 a good bit.
Those are me.
And I mean, the destructible vinyl stickers, the ones that are really hard to peel off, love those in airports because thousands and thousands of people every day are coming across those.
So my mom was like, wait, this is the same sticker that's on the front door of your building in New York. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know who you are. But she was like, how did that happen? Like, she was confused about it, like, she's like, is this a brand like that just does this? I was like, it's a long story, Mom. But that's what's cool about that. Even if you're not into the culture, it sort of piques your interest in some way because you're just seeing it repetitively over and over again.
Yeah, and especially pre-internet, how things would affect people was largely through repetition. So I would run little ads in some of the skate mags and a couple of the punk rock magazines saying, with a picture of the image that would say, for stickers in the lowdown, send a self-addressed stamped envelope. And so, I was thinking in a viral transmission way before the internet. But of course, once the internet came along, I seized on that.
Yeah. Did you at any point when that story of you just like cutting out an André photo out of the newspaper is amazing. But were you thinking like, this could be a brand? Like I could make a lot of money from this?
Because I was broke for the first 10 years of my career, I never thought I was going to make a lot of money at anything. But I did think I could have a lot of fun. And because the T-shirt is the cultural currency of everything that created me. Punk rock, skateboarding, early hip hop. I loved, the Public Enemy logo. I made a homemade shirt of that logo. I loved Slick Rick, LL Cool J. I wanted so hip hop became part of the equation as well. But what I thought is, I want to do street art. I know that people like T-shirts of things. I can sell T-shirts to fund my street art. And so I really thought that the T-shirt stuff was going to be just something that helped me to survive as a very enthusiastic vandal.
Yeah. and a bootlegger. I love that you're just making your own versions of like band shirts.
Oh yeah. And now I get to actually collaborate with those bands
Right?
and do stuff that is official, which it's totally surreal.
I almost think in some ways, like young people today, there's so much pressure for them to be like dope right out of the gate that if they wanted to make like a bootleg Public Enemy shirt, something would inherently prevent them from doing so. But like you almost like honed your craft by being like a bootlegger.
Yeah, I did. That's totally true. I mean, by emulating a lot of different styles and trying a lot of things out, it's like a solo apprenticeship, just like by an aesthetic study, trying to mimic this logo or that style, but it all ended up being filtered through my sensibility as well. And I think that being able to incubate your thing in relative isolation creates a lot of freedom. Now, everybody overshares, and there's a lot of whether you're conscious of it or not, there's a lot of immediate feedback that can be paralyzing.
Yes. Judgments.
So, judgments. And I use all those tools, but I'm actually very grateful that I was able to do stuff that I look back and am kind of embarrassed of. Without a lot of people being able to bring it back up later.
Totally. So let's fast forward a little bit. Somehow that campaign that you did manifested into the Obey clothing line. Do you remember the turning point where you sort of knew that this is bigger than just me having fun out there, but this is like people are really ordering lots of shirts now or lots of stickers? Like, do you remember that turning point?
Well, I started making T-shirts of first the original André in 92 or 91 even. Yeah, and then I was doing it all myself until 96, but I called it Giant back then. It wasn't called Obey, even though I had started to use the word obey in my work.
Yeah.
But then in 96, I was too far in debt to continue. So
Because of the clothing line?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I was trying to go out to do all the trade shows and run ads in Slap and do all the things that would compete with the companies that had deeper pockets. And even though I'd done so much street work that a lot of cool people knew my stuff, that had not yet translated into an interest in my clothing wares.
Yeah.
So, I had cool shops, places like X Large in LA, and even I think 97 was when Urban Outfitters first did sort of a test order that sold terribly, so they never ordered again for several years. But but it was a really tough thing. So then I moved to California. I worked with Andy Howell, who had started New Deal Skateboards, Element Skateboards, and Sophisto Clothing. Which was originally called Zero Sophisto, and then Jamie Thomas said, "Can I take the Zero part and you keep the Sophisto part?"
Oh, wow.
And I was working with Andy. I was managing production for him while still doing my stuff, but it was still failing miserably. But luckily, in '99, I started talking to. And I was all along making my posters and my street art and doing stuff. And if I could make a few $100 every quarter from doing the T-shirts, it was still helpful, but not very.
Yeah, right.
But then in '99, I met my current partners with Obey Clothing, and they all had strong backgrounds in apparel, cut and sew production, and then luckily a designer, Mike Ternosky, who's still our lead men's cut and sew designer. He had just gotten out of fashion school in Philadelphia, and he was a big fan of my work. So, and he listened to the Melvins, and he listened to Bad Brains, and he skated and snowboarded. So, I knew that he was somebody that I could really work with, and having people who understood the business side, which I was never good at, that was the turning point. So, we really we started getting it together in 99, it launched in 2000, and for the first 3 years, Obey Clothing lost money. And that was never something that I could have done on my own. I lived so hand to mouth, there was no way I could do anything that was losing money.
Yeah.
But I built the agreement, the licensing agreement, so that I'm the creative director of the brand, and I have creative control over the brand. But I'm also very open to the creative input from everybody else that I work with, because everybody's got their specific area of expertise, and that's what I think a lot of people who have an internet, an Instagram following, and they make a few shirts, and they think they're going to take it to the next level, and then they have the harsh wake up call that when they try, that it's actually a very, very tough business. You know firsthand.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have trepidation when you were bringing in the partners? Like, because I know a lot of young creatives who start a brand are like, "This is my baby. I don't want to give up any portion of this baby." Did you have that fear?
I did have that fear because, I do a lot of things I do myself. I printed in my garage for years and years because I want to do it my way. I'm kind of, control is really important to me, but also reaching a lot of people is important to me. So, I thought it was worth taking the risk and structuring the deal in a way I was comfortable with. And one of the things that my partners said to me initially was, that doing this may have a negative impact on your fine art career because, the fine art world is not too fond of people who, merchandise things. Yeah. But my feeling was I relate more to the culture and accessibility of streetwear than I do to the culture of the elitism of the fine art world anyway. So. F them, man.
You could say fuck.
All right, yeah, fuck them. And so and I'm always, I don't want to ever take the safe position on anything if it's not what I genuinely believe in. Yeah. And I believe that all these rigid categories for fine art, streetwear, design, activism, that, there's always, in cultures of rule breaking, there's all these referees and rule, scorekeepers and rule managers. And it's so ironic, but, so I'm like, okay, you don't like the way I'm doing it. I'm rule breaking right here.
Yeah, so. Totally. You also at a certain point in your career morphed into a agency owner, right? You owned a ad agency, like a mini boutique sort of creative agency, would you say?
Yeah, I still do. Because during those years when I couldn't make a living from the clothing stuff, I was doing a lot of graphic design for music labels and movie studios and other apparel brands.
Okay.
And initially the agency I was partnered with a guy named Dave Kinsey, who's a
legend.
He's a known artist and did a lot in skateboarding. We both did a lot in skateboarding, and that was called Black Market. And then he and I split in 2003, and he kept Black Market, and I formed Studio Number One. So I still have that agency, but I focus almost exclusively on my own art, except for pro bono projects that I do for different charities that I care about. But the agency is great because we have commercial clients, and then the agency also helps me to fulfill the myriad obligations I have with my work, from from helping with stuff with the clothing brand to production work for different things that I'm doing, from web stuff to signage for shows or projects. And I'm, when it comes to fine art, I'm making the illustration, I'm doing the design, but there's a lot of then ancillary uses of that stuff that it's not the best use of my time. I screen printed my posters myself for years, but now I have other people screen stuff because that's not the best use of my time. So I'm always thinking about the best balance of earning a living, keeping my vision as pure as possible, and reaching as many people as possible.
Is the agency also good because I'm sure with your increased notoriety, more and more corporations want to be working with you, right? Is that a good way to just, talk to the agency if you want me to brand your alcohol bottle or something?
Yeah, it is. And, It's touchy because it's not. I'm a target for the street cred police, and if I work with a corporation that's seen as sort of antithetical to my philosophy or my roots, it can be problematic, even when I'm not the one doing the work. So I'm actually very choosy about the clients that I work with and the agency works with. We've turned down a good bit of work from things that would seem like an ethical conflict to where I'm coming from with my messages of environmental responsibility or any number of things. But I'm super happy to employ several great designers who also usually have art career ambitions, and having that stable income has allowed them to really push their art. Cleon Peterson's a good example. He worked for me off and on for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Do you know his work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Flo Zavala back in the day.
Yeah. Flo worked with us. There's a guy, Cisco, that works with us. That's got a brand called Never Made. That's it's a small thing, but it's being carried a little bit by Zoomies and Urban. And he's working for me doing graphic design, but also doing his brand. So I'm happy that there's this, what I think is a very healthy ecosystem around what I'm doing.
How many people are at Studio Number One now?
We have around 20 employees.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Just employing 20 people to this, be able to empower their artwork and do creative work is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we also have the gallery on the first floor of our building in LA called Subliminal Projects, and there's a gallery director whose full-time job is to just work on the gallery, and we show artists, some that are established, but mostly that aren't that well known yet, because what we want to do is turn people on to art. The gallery business is a tough business, but having the space in our building where the overhead is basically covered by our other businesses means that we can put stuff out there that's a risk financially, but that we believe in.
This is a good time to recap on how Shepard was wise enough to take the time to analyze his business from a dollars and cents standpoint and realize how his own weaknesses might stifle growth. This self-recognition is what may have led to the progress that he's made over time. That difficult decision to take on partners for the brand that he birthed, which allowed him to then focus on his strengths, was the catalyst that spawned where he stands today, employing a group with shared ethics. A team that fosters positivity into existence through art. What could be better than that?
So thus far, I'm counting at minimum 3 major hats that you're wearing, right? You have the Obey brand, you have Studio Number One, and you have Shepard Fairey, the artist, as a brand as well. Was there a point? It seems like right now, like if I sort of look at you, it seems like you've got everything sort of like under control. Like everything is sort of running. It feels like a well-oiled machine from the outside.
Yeah, I think it is. I end up being stressed out a lot. I work a lot of hours to try to keep it all running smoothly. But it's I'm lucky to have good people on my team who are they're really. I couldn't do it without them, and so that makes things easier. But still, there's a lot that falls on me. But I'm a workaholic. I love it.
Do you remember a time where you felt like you were being pulled apart in too many different directions?
Well, when the Obama poster took off and all of a sudden I could have been doing 5 interviews every single day of the week.
Seriously.
And, there were a lot of pressures for me to be a voice. And I didn't want to squander the opportunity to be this bridge between mainstream politics that a lot of counterculture people are suspicious of, and my audience. I wanted to because I mean, let's face it, the two-party system is flawed as it is. It's what we've got, and if you don't participate, then you leave the end result in the hands of people you frequently are going to disagree with. So you really voting is so important, and but that was a lot of stress, and then I ended up in the copyright infringement lawsuit with the Associated Press after that. So, I've never sort of been at the center of a storm quite like that, and I was I had to start meditating.
Yeah,
it was pretty brutal, but yeah, I also learned a lot from those experiences, and sort of what my capacity is, and to be smarter about not getting in the crosshairs of a big media company like the Associated Press, and
Yeah, and this is from someone who's been arrested, so it's like that's a big deal. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've been arrested 18 times, and a lawsuit was way more brutal than any of the arrests.
Wow.
But yeah, I feel what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to actually learn, but then I wouldn't say maintain a state of arrested development, but of youthful idealism, and it's nice as I get a little bit older to have a lot of experiences that I think make me smarter about what I'm doing, but also with the same zest that I've always had.
Yeah, that leads perfectly to my next question. And there's not too many people that I've interviewed on this show that I can ask this question to, but you being sort of like a quadruple level OG at this point, do you think about legacy? Like longevity, legacy, the people you're sort of like bringing up, the people that you have to meet. Like you are at this point where, there's going to be college students and high school students studying your work.
I do think more about it now. Next year will be the 30th anniversary of when I made the original André sticker. So that was June 1989. Wow. And I don't look a day over 35, so
yeah.
Started it when I was 6. But anyway, I am. God, to say matured just sounds so ugh. But I understand my responsibility to use the megaphone I have in a way that I'm going to be proud of.
Yeah.
And just not squander it. I've got 2 kids, 2 daughters, 10 and 13. Our older daughter is a total streetwear head and DJs and does her own fashion stuff, and the younger one does a lot of fashion stuff too. They like cool music. They're cool kids, but that's not what I'm proud of. What I'm proud of is that they come back to me with saying, oh, there needs to be a travel ban on toddlers because statistically you're more likely to be killed by a toddler than a Muslim terrorist.
That's what your 13-year-old tells you.
Yeah, that's what my 13-year-old tells me. So
that's scary as shit that she's that smart.
So because, she looks at xenophobia and goes, this is not logical, this is not empirical, and let me prove it. And,
wow. That's dope. You should be proud of that for sure.
It is really cool. And so I definitely want to still be fun and cool with the stuff I'm doing, but I also am thinking about I am thinking about like the kind of messages I'm promoting and the tone that I take, especially in this moment of very hostile, uncivil
times.
It's just it's the degradation of civility is a real problem, I think.
Yeah. It must be tough because you inherently work in an industry that's based on youth culture. You admit that you're...
And irreverence.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And you are now sort of like not young, right?
Yeah.
We're both not young.
Yeah.
We have to both deal with this, I think. And you're also, you could say that everything that you've built is not irreverent. It's very well established now. And I always sort of grapple with like, I never want to end up being like the old guy in the nightclub that's like trying to be down with the youth, but I'm still like making stuff for the youth. So it's like this very fine line. I wonder if you sort of check yourself all the time, like, am I trying too hard here? Or is this like, am I still being, like relevant to the youth at the same time?
Well, I'm always open-minded to new things happening culturally, but unlike when I was 19, I'm not going to like basically cash all my chips in on that. You know what I mean? Like now I've got the perspective of seeing, in streetwear, a generation is like 4 years of seeing like so many different generations of things happen. And so, yeah, I look at, sort of what I think is has got merit in the grand scheme of things, which I have a lot more perspective on now, and maybe I'll get down with that, but
get down with the youngins.
Yeah, drop crotch jogger pants. I never got down with it, and I look back and go, I was right.
Yeah. So speaking of getting down with what young people are doing right now, you just recently announced sort of a new era in the way you're exposing your artwork, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the AR thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I had the biggest non-museum show of my career in November, December of last year, and
where was that?
In L.A.
Okay.
And it's called Damaged, and it was in a converted warehouse space with some nice white walls, but it was sort of a hybrid of feeling industrial and street, and then also feeling like a proper space to show art. But in that space I had a printing press running, giving away prints for certain people, a newsstand with the newspaper I made called the Damaged Times with articles by lots of great writers. I had a billboard installation, a big mural, and 230 pieces of art, sculptures. So it unlike most white wall art shows where you just walk in and look at a few pieces, this was a very very tactile show. And working with VRT Inchers, they basically went in and laser mapped the entire space and recreated it as a virtual reality, augmented reality space. And I've never seen anything like it. I think it is. It's definitely the most extensive art show app that's ever been created, and it works on. You don't have to have an Oculus. You can also experience it on a tablet or an iPhone,
so
or Android. But
you knew this was happening last year.
Yeah. So I met them. I saw they had done an AR/VR experience for the Kerry James Marshall show at MoCA, and I was very impressed by that. But then when they showed me the first beta version in progress, I just couldn't believe how realistic the space felt. And when I make an art show that's that ambitious, I was working on that show for close to 2 years, and I'm really proud of it. That it's up for a month and then it's gone.
Yeah.
That's just tragic in a way.
Right.
I mean, I'm a street artist. I'm used to things going up and then being cleaned or painted over, dissed, whatever.
Right.
And so process is what's most valuable to me, but if I could have it both ways, I'm happy about that. I enjoy the process, and it gets to have longevity.
Yeah. When you say it was your largest non-gallery, non-museum show, do you mean like you self-funded that show?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like you got the space, you handled renovating it and making it.
Yeah, I worked with some partners from Detroit called Library Street Collective, but we produced the whole show together.
Fuck.
It's I don't know whether you saw any photos from it, but it was a massive show.
Yeah.
And it's the same space where the Beyond the Streets show happened, and that had 120 artists in it, and I did it
Yourself.
myself. Yeah. But anyway, the Damaged app is it also additionally has narration by me, several hours of narration. So during the course of the show, I would go there on the weekends, and I also, I held, and just impromptu say, if anybody wants a tour through the space, like gather now, I'll talk about it. And
That's so dope.
But
that would never happen in a museum or a gallery. Like,
yeah, but I legitimately care about the people. I really do, and I also put a lot of thought into what I was doing. So anything that wasn't self-explanatory, I love the opportunity to be able to explain it further. I try to make my work fairly self-explanatory, but there are always layers that people aren't going to pick up on because they don't know me. They don't know exactly how I think. So having that component to the app, I think, makes it really special.
Yeah.
I know that if I could have a virtual reality walkthrough of Andy Warhol's factory or any number of things, and hear Warhol or Rauschenberg or Barbara Kruger, Keith Haring talking about what drove them, that would be insanely valuable to me.
It almost makes me so sad that you're saying that we can't have those now, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
from those past artists that you mentioned, now
yeah.
we can have it, thankfully, but it's so sad.
For as many, I really believe that people creating things in the real world and experiencing molecules colliding, visceral things, and taking risks is important. So there are aspects of the safety of technology that I don't like, but this is an aspect of technology that I absolutely love. Mm-hmm. That you're getting the next best thing to an in-person experience with the work, with the added that you could hear me give the tour through the show, which very, very few people got to, even though thousands of people went through my show. Yeah. Only a small percentage of them were there when I was doing tours.
Right. This is going to put like art educators out of business. Because now, like in art school, they were like, what he meant but what Cezanne meant here. And I'm always like, how do you know? Like, how do you know that's what he meant there,
Of course. I mean, there's a whole industry around that. And I remember seeing in art school at RISD a Jasper Johns interview, a recorded interview, a video interview, where he's denying that there's any specific narrative to his Target paintings or his American flag paintings, and the art critic is debating the artist.
I'm telling you, it means nothing.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I'm the art therapist here, and you just aren't in touch with your feelings the way I can translate this.
Oh my God! Yeah.
But
so I guess they'll still have a job because
they'll
argue
still,
your own words. Yeah.
Exactly. But I do think that's a beautiful thing that it's you're hearing it straight from me, and that in the app you can go right up to the work and see the textures. I incorporate a lot of collage and layering, and it never translates in photos, because in photos, even on the web, you can't get high enough resolution stuff to really zoom in and see that stuff in a meaningful way. But with the app, you actually can.
Yeah. So imagine fast forwarding like 30, 40 years when your kids are like our age, right? How are they going to be experiencing art? Like, right now we're already in this amazing app. In 40 years, it's going to be like, do they even need to go into real museums anymore?
Well, I hope that they will, because I still think that the experience with art as an object, not just on a screen, is most valuable. And the way light plays off different surfaces, and sometimes I use metallic spray paints in my work, and from one angle you don't see it, and then you move 6 inches and bam, it comes to life. That's stuff that you're never going to get from a screen. But I do think that an appreciation for art through this technology would lead to maybe actually more people going to see it in person. So I don't look at it as a substitute. I look at it as maybe something to stimulate interest.
Right, like a promotional vehicle to get you out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when I look at all the things, whether it's like first person shooter games or all this other stuff that the technology is making very realistic for people, I'd love to see more of it focused on art. Yeah.
Did you see Ready Player One?
I haven't seen it. No, okay. Is it good?
It's good, but it's a very foreseeable, believable future where, like, a video game simulation could be so close to real life that there really is no difference at a certain point. So you could just spend your whole days in the game.
It's Matrix-esque.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's pretty scary.
Well, I still like going outside and feeling the wind in my hair, and I still like putting stickers up on physical poles.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, you mentioned some of the more sort of technical details of seeing art in person, like, the metallic paints and stuff like that. But I'm actually such a romantic that I feel like when you're standing in front of an actual work, there's like almost like pheromones or like some sort of like DNA is passing through that like you can't get over a screen, like when you go to a real show.
No doubt. And, one of the reasons I love street art, and the scale of big murals or daring pieces on the tops of buildings, which was one of my favorite things to do. Like, I used to do pull-ups all the time just so I could climb to good spots.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to stay in really good shape, so I was a good climber.
Yeah.
The energy that is in those applications, it's very primal. When you experience it firsthand, it's like without them being there, it's like you're in the presence of an untamed beast. You know?
Yeah. I mean, your recent Vegas piece, the one not on the Strip, it's sort of off the Strip.
Yeah.
You did a hotel, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, like, when you drive up to that, it's breathtaking. It's like, fuck, that is massive.
Well, thanks. It was really windy, and the swing stage was swinging like 2 to 3 feet left and right when we were painting it. But
what hotel is it on? Just so people know to visit.
Plaza.
The Plaza. Okay.
Yeah. The Plaza in downtown Vegas. But yeah, that's it. When I do a piece that scale, it's not just it changes the landscape, and I mean it's a dramatic impact.
Yeah, totally.
And that's. What I got a little taste of the gateway drug was the 3-inch sticker, but now I'm addicted to big buildings. I love it.
Do you know how many 3-inch stickers you've made?
Ooh,
best guess.
Millions. I don't know. I've a few years back, I just checked to see how many I made that year, and it was around 900,000 just that year. So,
so you're like at tens and 20s of millions of stickers.
Yeah, it's a lot, and
not counting the ones that other people make and put up too.
Right. It's probably the most affordable and effective, real world viral tool.
Yeah. Yep. And I love your inventory management in your head. Like you still see one and you still know if you did that or not, right?
Oh, of course.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, if it's not at a 90-degree angle, I always see ones that are slightly crooked. I'm like, God damn it, this person.
You know it's not you.
Yeah, I'm very careful about it. But I still seeing a city while doing street art or putting stickers up. I'm looking at surfaces in a different way, and it sort of started with skateboarding, like looking for curbs, handrails, banks, all that stuff. But street art is the same thing, where I think a lot of people can just like cruise through a city and not notice much. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for street art spots, you can't help but absorb all the details, and that's great.
Right.
I feel like I really get to learn the cities that I walk around in when I'm doing that.
What advice do you give a young person today, right, who has all this creativity and angst sort of bottled up in them, and now they have all the means today of technology to be able to get that out, not just stenciling and stickering, although maybe that is still one of the most effective ways, but how would you tell them this is how you should get your word out?
Well, one of the things I'd say is make sure that what you're trying to get the word out about is going to cut through the clutter, because now the problem is all the white noise. Yeah. Everybody's a media creator now, and you have a lot of tools at your disposal. But I think first, just make something that is truly memorable and your unique vision.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then I'd say using every different medium that makes sense. But for certain concepts, certain applications might make more sense. If I don't know what you're doing, then I can't tell you which ones those are. But understanding. There's the McLuhan phrase, the medium is the message. So for me, street art made a lot of sense because the idea of questioning the control of public space with something even nonsensical and non-political was still a political act. And so, the medium itself was part of the message. This is a disruptive act of defiance in public space. For other people, the content might be different. There's a different channel to plug into, but making it memorable is really, really important, and then also I think tenacity. Because there are a lot of overnight sensations that that digital technology has allowed to happen, that's still the exception. But a lot of people, they look at that like it's like being a lottery winner. It's very, or being struck by lightning. It's very unlikely. So people give up too quickly because they didn't have the same overnight success that someone else did, and then they go, oh well, my formula wasn't the right formula because it didn't yield that instantly. Yeah. But I think a lot of times good ideas they take a minute to resonate, and so tenacity is important, but also being honest with yourself that if what you're doing doesn't seem to be connecting, that maybe it's time to evolve it. So if that sounds contradictory,
a little bit,
I don't mean it to be, but it's one of the things I learned in art school was that I'm going to get varied feedback from other students and teachers. So I actually have to become my own harshest critic about whether I'm achieving what I want, and then really stick to my vision, by being brutally honest with myself. So I think people need to do that. But it's such a cliche, but also networking with like-minded people. I do think that there's a reason why certain movements seem to sort of propel all the members forward, because it achieves enough critical mass for a concept, an aesthetic, to get attention for the people within that realm. I mean, I'm working with some of the people from downtown New York in the mid-'90s, the Visual Mafia from the Alleged Gallery, and Phil Frost, Thomas Campbell, Aaron Rose, Mike Mills, all those guys. Futura was still sort of part of that scene. It for me to be down with those people was really helped me a lot. I think we all helped each other. I was probably the least credible member of the group back then. So anything I could hitch my wagon to, I was down with. But
so you're basically saying have a posse.
And support each other. Right. There's something really dark in the American psyche about, like, I did it all on my own, bro. But nobody does anything all on their own. And so just like being supportive of other people and hoping that you'll receive the same thing reciprocally. Just having good karma about what you're doing, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about tenacity, because it almost feels like because of the tools that we have at our disposal, the tenacity becomes harder, because it's almost like I almost equate it to, like, you DJ, right? Like, do you DJ with Serato or vinyl?
Well, I started with vinyl, but I use Serato now.
Yeah, but I'm the same, right? I started vinyl, went to Serato, but like the Serato is almost paralyzing in the amount of options I have. Like I almost prefer just a bag of records.
Right.
And I think it's that sort of tenacity where it's like, there's no other option. I have to make this work. But now it's like, oh, my Instagram didn't work. Let me try a Snapchat account now. Yeah. No,
it's true. All of these different tools, I think, interface with basic human nature. And so if you can't make it work on Instagram and it's about visuals, then maybe you need to reconsider the visual, not the platform.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you, man. That was awesome. That was a great interview.
Yeah, thanks
a lot for that.
It was fun.
Later.
Hey, thanks for listening to this amazing episode with the legend Shepard Fairey. As always, you can find out more about the show or listen to other episodes at hypebeast.com/radio. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a comment. Tell me what you think of the show. You can also reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at jeffstaple. And you can email any questions about the show to questions@businessofhype.com. And Daniel, do we have any mail in the mailbag this week?
Yeah, man, there's always mail in the mailbag. This week's question comes from Fumi Takahashi. Hi, Jeff. I really enjoy the material on the podcast. I'm a 32-year-old healthcare provider, physical therapist, but still shamelessly immersed in the world of streetwear and still rocking Dunks to work. I currently work in the private practice sector for sports medicine, and even though streetwear and healthcare appear to be completely different domains, I definitely noticed some overlapping themes between the two disciplines after listening to your podcasts. In both disciplines, the importance of word of mouth is really vital to boost your business, and the amount of passion and love the individual has for his or her craft really matters. With that being said, I was curious as to whether you had come across projects where you wanted to collaborate with a discipline that seemed to be completely irrelevant to streetwear, but had the potential for greatness nonetheless.
Hey Fumi, thanks for asking that question. So you asked if I was ever interested in collaborating with disciplines outside of streetwear culture. For me, actually, if you look past at the collaborations that we've done, a lot of them weren't in streetwear, and I kind of pride myself on doing things outside of the streetwear culture. Probably one of the ones that I'm most proud of is we recently did a collaboration with Shake Shack, which was pretty dope. I don't know if you live near a Shake Shack, but if you do, it's one of the best sort of burger and fry places that you can have in your life. And I was always a huge fan of Shake Shack for many years, and then they basically walked into my store and was like, would we ever be interested in doing a collaboration? And at first glance, you would think that like a food business and a streetwear business really wouldn't have anything to do with each other. But we went ahead and did it. I designed, quote unquote, a flavor of their shake. And then that was exclusively available through all the local New York City-based Shake Shacks. We also designed the T-shirt. We did a pair of special sunglasses, and then we did the whole release at Madison Square Park before it went out to all the other Shake Shacks across New York City. So that was really dope. And it's always great because I'm working with the creators and the chefs and sort of being cross-disciplinary in terms of like what they look for in terms of quality and good design, you know, culinary design in their case. And then from my standpoint, of course, I'm trying to bring like branding and product design and graphic design into the thing. So when you sort of mix all those aspects together, I think something special really happens because I'm able to learn from them and they're able to learn from me. And that's when a true collaboration really is the most beneficial, you know. So you'll actually find very few instances where I actually collaborate with like another streetwear clothing brand. I think it's a little bit different when you talk about sort of like ancillary brands that dip into street culture, such as like a Nike or a Puma or a Beats by Dre or a New Era. You know, those are brands that, while yes, they play in street culture, they are inherently not streetwear brands. So there's still that like cross-pollination learning that's happening between two disciplines. And that's the thing that I really enjoy about doing a collab. If I'm just sort of like talking to someone who knows everything about making a T-shirt and I know everything about making a T-shirt, then together, you know, it's going to be really hard for us to learn something new, you know. So I hope that answered your question. And if you guys out there listening have any other questions, feel free to email questions@businessofhype.com. The Business of Hype is made in collaboration with Bright Young Things. You could check them out at byt.nyc. It is directed by Daniel Navetta, and our editor is David Rogers Berry. I'm Jeff Staple, and you've been listening to The Business of Hype on Hype Radio.